Huh? Yeah, yeah, you get it?
Buster makes me feel good. Makes me feel good.
Heads up. Tall, dark, and horny at 12 o'clock.
And today we have Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. And I'll admit, when they dropped the trailer, it looked cool and sure, but I don't love the title. You have like the Ghostbusters movies, you had Answer the Call, which I'm sorry, doesn't exist. I don't know why I don't know where I came up with that title from. Afterlife, I like the title of that. Made sense also given the film. Frozen Empire. Sure. It is the latest installment in the Ghostbusters franchise. Personally, as with a lot of people out there, I love the first one. I also really enjoyed the second Ghostbusters back in the day. Answer the Call is something I'm not going to get into too much, but I will say that it was a movie that I feel is so bad. It is literally what inspired me to start reviewing films. I shit you not. Literally, my first movie review I ever did. Cringe back then, by the way, I will admit, but then Afterlife came out. I was curious if nostalgia got me or if it held up or if it was still good. So like a couple days before I went to go see Frozen Empire, I did revisit Afterlife. It's still really good. Afterlife was still really good. I got teared up a couple times. So I was actually pretty excited to see Frozen Empire. Directed by a Gil Kenan. Why would I say Kenan? It's probably Kenan, right? Interesting thing, he was a writer on the first movie, but not the director of the previous film. So he took over for Jason Reitman as the first director. Hit or miss track record when it comes to his previous works. He did do Monster House, which if you ask this young man here who grew up with this, terrified me when I was a kid. But Monster House is goated. I don't care what you say. It is goated. But he also directed the reboot of Poltergeist, which quite frankly, does not need to exist. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Also, directed the Scream series, the TV series. I didn't watch it, but I did hear that it was surprisingly good. There's a whole ensemble cast. Everybody from the eternal god of a man who also plays with ants. Obviously, he's in this. To, the who's who of the old cast, to that kid from Stranger Things and other newer arrivals. But once again, want to give a shout out to my favorite character personally, but I think like the best one in the movie, hands down, McKenna Grace. I don't know if I just missed her previous filmography when I first reviewed the movie, but as much as I love her, this makes sense. She was young Theo in The Haunting of Hill House, so this girl has gotten the absolute honor and pleasure of working with Flanagan himself. So, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire takes place, 2 years after the events of Afterlife? So, they're not in the middle of bum truck nowhere anymore. They're back in
New York City.
and they're in the old firehouse. Luckily, an old Ghostbuster has done very well for himself financially through corporate endeavors, and so he's helping to fund the whole thing. But they're fighting ghosts for the better part of a couple years downtown, but of course there's still skeptics, and now there's new threats that are coming out of the woodwork, and one of them is this like ice freezy boy god, and there's the threat of everything being sent back to the ice age, and the fear chill, whatever, the death chill, whatever it's called. And then here you go. Now you have the old Ghostbusters working with the new generation, trying to deep breath. Start with the pros first, as always. It's not as good as Afterlife, but I still really enjoyed it. IGN's cracked as always. I don't know what stuff their reviewers and writers are smoking over there, but critics are very divided about this in general. I think fans are mostly here for it. I'm in the camp of the latter. Not as good as the previous installment. Much better than the one that will not be named, for sure. and I really enjoyed this. I had a fun time. I'm biased because I like Ghostbusters, so anything Ghostbusters that's not absolute trash, I'm on board for. Fun little adventure they go on, the cast all plays off each other really well. The new ones we've met from the previous one, we got old cast members from the older franchise, and then we have, surprisingly, even newer characters that have now been introduced to us for this movie. So, I don't know, all the actors do a great job, everybody plays their role, plays their characters, on-set chemistry, the bickering, the jokes, it all mostly lands for me, honestly. I like how there are a lot of new concepts, a lot of new Ghostbusting tech, a lot of new characters, a lot of new lore. There's a lot of new stuff being introduced. So, as a good sequel should be, they're trying to expand, evolve, add to this franchise. So, I can't fault them too much for, the attempt. And the last note I put in prose, I forgot I wrote this. There is fun to be had when we are bustin'. Yeah, of course there is. It's just Ghostbusting. It's going around getting a mixture of both, admittedly, some CGI specters. It's fun watching these kids and these adults look up lore, bust ghosts, go on these hijinks and little spiritual, scientific, pseudo-scientific escapades. Like, sure, I'm here for it. I like the premise. But this film does have its share of cons. Not enough to, severely drag it down, but as the title suggests, it's trying to do a little bit too much, in my opinion. The movie is spinning way too many plates. I don't think it ruins the experience. Afterlife worked because 90% of that film is the new generation of Ghostbusters, while paying homage to the original through various channels of soundtrack, ghosts, visual effects, the lore, especially the old family, and then by the end of the movie, then you have the old generation come in, help save the day, or they have cameos here and there, and that blend, I think, is a very good blend. But now the issue that arises is that you have Frozen Empire, which has the new generation of Ghostbusters, but then you have a heavier involvement of the old generation of Ghostbusters. Then you have new characters that work for the old Ghostbusters in science and R&R and research. And look, I like that McAllister fellow, the British guy. He's a hilarious comedian. I like him as much as the next guy, right? I love to see him included. I'm glad they brought some of the ancillary cast from the last movie. The new Ghost Girl I thought was interesting, and I'm always like the concept of a new villain being introduced. But there's so much going on in terms of characters, story, setting, lore, threats, ghosts. It all starts stacking up. The new technology, just so much is injected into this film. It doesn't crumble under the weight of it all, but it often will lack focus, and often the new concepts and characters aren't substantive enough to my liking. It's a cocktail that's just a little bit too, a little bit too strong in some parts, and other parts a little bit too weak on the pour. So all the characters basically just needed room to breathe. I liked all the characters. Obviously we liked the old Ghostbusters. I like the new ones that I've learned about from the previous film, like anybody from Phoebe to Paul Rudd's McGruber, whatever his name is, Gruberson, and even the new science researchers, bringing back Dick from the olden days, and new Ghost Girl and whatnot. Sure, I liked all the characters and the scenes they were in, what little they were given in terms of cumulative interactions, but I think a lot of them were just undercooked. The nostalgia is nice and all, but there needs to be a balance, right? I think what they did was they read the room from the fan reaction from Afterlife, and I guess they were like, oh, look, they loved all the old so much. Instead of having our film pay homage to the OG, what if our film is partially just the OG? Let's get him back to New York, get him back to the old firehouse. Maybe it was the plan from the word go, right? From the start of it all. But there's so much of the old that I hesitate to throw the word nostalgia bait in there, because I do like nostalgia. And, of course, it helps sell seats. Jurassic World Dominion. I don't mind the old and the new, but there needs to be a balance. And the whole point of bringing Ghostbusters Afterlife, at least to me, what I thought the point was it's for a new generation. It's the old generation sending the boat off for the new ones. We'll still see them from time to time, but you gotta let baby bird leave the nest. And I feel like this movie takes a slight step backward, back into they want the old stuff, right? They want the nostalgia, right? They want to see all the old characters, right? We can do that and still add in all the new ones. It'll work, trust me, believe me. And then don't get me started on the villain. The villain is forgettable, severely undercooked. We learn about the villain through like one large exposition dump for Patton Oswalt comes in, talks about the big bad, and that's it. Definitely ghosts and ghost busting, but none of them get a large amount of time except for our main guy. But then even our main guy, look, you have Gozer the Gozerian. The most memorable Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Like two of the most memorable. You have the dogs, right? Again, all tied to Gozer. And then even what was it? Egon, whatever the hell, the guy from the painting in 2, right? There's a lot of lore to be had, but I found the lore for the Frozen guy. I don't even remember his name. I found the lore for him and his involvement and all that he does and the little that he grunts or says. I don't even remember if he talks. Jesus Christ. I didn't feel threatened or spooked or scared. He clearly is powerful, but also the power dynamics are odd. And then he just shows up and then we take him down and we save the day. And that's it. The movie overall, I still really enjoyed it. Although it's trying to do a lot and some might say trying to do too much, I mean, what it does is still good and in some parts kind of great, but not nearly as good as it was in Afterlife. So I'm a little bit concerned, but I'm cautiously optimistic for the future of Ghostbusters. I still very much want them to keep making them. As long as they don't try to do too much with the future films, then I think the balance will be much more evenly cooked throughout. So I would still give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire I would give it a low 4 out of 5. I'd give it a low 4 out of 5. I think I'd feel confident in giving Afterlife a high 4 out of 5, and then I would give Frozen Empire a low 4 out of 5. Not as good, but still like really good, I think. I enjoyed it. Critics definitely disagree. I'm sure some of you might out there, but I liked it, and I'm eager to see if they make another one. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, travelers.